Scott DeAngelo is the CMO of Allegiant and also a board member of LDCVA. And we know you, Scott, in both of those roles, and have had a chance to be able to work with you as well as consider you a good friend as well. As you look at this, and you hear what Eric was kind of setting a really good, I think, framework for what we've been experiencing, where we're heading. What has it been like for the carrier, and what are you seeing happen near term, moving into longer term, that COVID has changed?
Yeah, you bet. And I'll speak first from us as a carrier. For those that know Allegiant, know we focus 100% on leisure travel, largely by providing affordable, accessible travel from small and mid-sized markets that would otherwise be unserved or underserved by nonstop air travel. And through this, we've been kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, when it comes to leisure travel. So I will double or triple down on this notion that demand for leisure travel is strong. We flew more last year. We flew more this year than last year, more last year than 2019. So we've already seen kind of leisure rebound to well above 2019 levels. But we, like all airlines, aren't flying as much as we'd like, and not being able to serve as many customers as we could all collectively serve. And that's largely driven by the staffing Eric pointed to. And I'm going to pick one role in particular, which is the big pole in the tent when it comes to airlines, that is pilots. We had a shortage going into the pandemic. There were many early retirement that were taken during COVID-19 in earnest, and there's not new students filling it. It's a high hurdle to become a commercial airline pilot from just the out-of-pocket expense perspective, for a student or for someone who wants to go about. And so, just let me hit on the demand and why that supply issue actually, beyond just an operational one, can really come back and be the one thing that bites us in the end. We've stopped almost calling it pin-up demand and or revenge travel demand. All those things may be true, but we believe there's a true structural shift in the demand for leisure travel, not this year, but for the foreseeable future, as people have taken the last 2 years to kind of reevaluate their priorities. And they have put things like the experiences, like the reconnection with friends and family, such that even the great information Eric shared that, suggests there are pressures to consumer confidence and or to discretionary spending. We're seeing the difference in how consumers decide to spend that discretionary money, favor things like leisure travel, like luxury products, like you only live once type purchases. So too are we seeing that while, yes, there look to be modest increases in folks traveling, those that are traveling more frequently, multiple 3-day vacations instead of one just big one. So you're seeing a lot of these things. And as much as there is kind of a pent up, extra oomph we're seeing right now in demand domestically, it's largely driven by what Eric pointed out, which was the fact that, of all the places you could go to, domestic is open for business, select international is, and then it goes down from there. So yeah, there may be an artificially high demand right now, but we're here to tell you that where that even falls down once international returns in 2 to 3 years may be well above where we were pre-pandemic. Last point on the pilots and fuel, and this is one that we and all airlines are very keen to solve. The doomsday scenario, if there's not enough pilots, is that there's less flying. We're seeing that. We've all taken down capacity versus where demand told us it could be, just given the supply side of pilots. And that, of course, fuel does us no favors either, drives up prices. And if this isn't in the kind of near medium term address, such that everyone can right size to be able to, fly whatever demand they have, you could envision a scenario where we started with air travel decades ago, where it becomes more of truly a luxury type experience, and is for the quote unquote rich and famous, versus the affordable, accessible air travel that certainly Allegiant, but all carriers over time have been able to provide the entire nation. So, that's kind of our goods and bads, but I'll leave it with just, we, and I think experts in our industry, when it comes to leisure, it's not just pent up the way that you go out and buy a bunch of goods to restock the house after, a week locked in from a snowstorm. This is a true shift in consumption of leisure travel, at least for the foreseeable future.
Let me follow on that, Scott, with that challenge with the supply and demand in terms of the workforce. And there's been several dynamics that have shaped that. Eric talked about some of the things that they're seeing at an industry level that can be done to address that. What do you think needs to be done to be able to actually combat that? Because it's not like you can get a pilot and say, go down and, okay, I'll be a pilot tomorrow. But to get the supply side of your staff and the workforce that's needed, what are you seeing and what can you share maybe that you all are doing that are trying to combat that, so that with the demand shift and the culture shift you're describing, you've got the supply to provide in terms of workforce?
Absolutely. So what we and what many other airlines have done in different forms is done everything from partner with to go out and buy flight schools, get earlier into kind of the funnel, so to speak. It doesn't solve the problem this summer or even this holiday season, but what's great to see in our industry is everybody's looking at this holistically as a chestnut checkers situation and beginning to do the things from sponsoring STEM programs among boys and girls in schools to actually partnering with and encouraging and providing incentive for people to go to flight school, have a job waiting for them on the way out. And you see almost to an airline, everyone doing this, which is real healthy to see the entire industry take a systematic, full funnel approach at trying to solve this. And in the near term, right, there's a variety of things that, that are being brought up just with regards to the different levels of standards that we have in the US versus Europe and other places. They're in place for great reasons, but there's also a lot that's changed with regards to simulator technology and the ability to train someone in the aircraft that they're flying and not just, flying a single engine Cessna. And so the hope is that across all of these things, there'll be a reasonable way to find what obviously, is incredibly safe, but less onerous hurdles and costs for men and women to become pilots, commercial airline pilots in this country. And in the meantime, we'll try to just stock more of them into the schools that spit them out today. Whether it's reverse travel to, out of places like Las Vegas or Los Angeles to go to a national park, to, consider those kind of major areas is how we're seeing a lot of people do their multiple trips. We have a lot of customers anecdotally who reach out to us when we put up our nonstop to nature pretty early in the pandemic, seeing that reverse travel of folks telling us that they're now, right, kind of almost filling out their passport, so to speak, of different national parks that they can go to. Whereas before, that was not something that they would consider. They were more traditional beach, resort type vacation. So I agree with Eric that it's just, they may spend different, they may be different places, but they're going.
From an airline perspective, I know the planes are so dramatically different now, and the idea of the joke about take your airborne before you get on the plane now, I mean, that plane air is so clean compared to before.
Yeah, Eric nailed it right. I'll give you two fun facts because I still even see people in the industry that don't recognize this. Number one, every 2 to 3 minutes, the entire cabin air has been recirculated and fresh air put in. And lest one think air flows from the front to the back or just gets trapped on there, it comes in through the top and out through the bottom. So it's actually circulating not from that guy coffin 10 rows in front of you, but in fact, right above you to below you at your feet. Last point about the mask, unrelated to the health aspect, but related to the staffing aspect that I can speak to. One of the worst things about it that drove to unprecedented levels of flight attendant attrition was a mandate was put in place, and people who never signed up to police federal policy were now having to do it. And honestly, bless the ones that stayed, and totally understand the ones that said, I didn't sign up for this. As soon as that was announced, Maury, the next day, the morale by flight attendants, crew members, airport was night and day difference, because that had been a real driver of flight attendant attrition over the past, year and a half, 2 years. I think this notion of reconnecting and now staying connected with those that we love, friends, relatives, right? Where we had the luxury of saying, I don't really want to go visit the mother-in-law again. I don't really want to visit. I think that's changed for this generation's rest of life. And so I think you'll see, VFR maintain a sustained thing coming out of the pandemic when it comes to leisure travel.